LZ-1 is landed.
LZ-1, the Falcon is landed. Landing operators moving to procedure 11.100, section 3 on LZ-1 BNet, recovery net.
Repeat, the Falcon has landed.
And welcome to tomorrow, Season 9, Episode number 1 for Saturday, January 2nd, 2016. My name is Benjamin Higginbotham, and I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of the patrons of tomorrow who've helped to make this specific segment of this episode happen. These are the people who've contributed $10 or more. This list has gotten longer in the new year, so thank you to all of the new patrons who've helped to make this specific segment happen. You can find out more information on how to help crowdfund the show over at patreon.com/TMRO. I am joined by Jared Head to my right, your left. I've got my beautiful, lovely, wonderful, and talented wife, Carrie Ann, sitting right here. And back on the screen, you won't get him for the whole show this time, Internet. I'm sorry. We've got Space Mike. For those who don't know, last episode, 837 from last year, there was a glitch in the control room, and for whatever reason, when watching live, you got nothing but Space Mike. Now, I do think maybe we should do that continuing into the... No?
Sure.
Maybe
it could
not.
be a Patreon thing.
Can we just rotate like between us or something like that?
Yeah, there you go. Just imagine an hour of nothing but this.
I mean, most people don't have to imagine. They've already experienced it.
They've already experienced it. All right, let's go ahead and get started with some space news. This was, well, there you go. Go ahead and roll it.
The main engine start has been initiated. This will be a three-step fashion to bring the turbo pumps on the first stage up to flight speed. 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 60-second Progress resupply vehicle from the Baikonur Cosmodrome, headed on a 2-day rendezvous to test upgraded systems en route to the International Space Station.
And that happened on December 21st at 8:44 Coordinated Universal Time. That was a Soyuz 2.1A rocket, and that launched the Progress MS cargo craft to the International Space Station. The Progress vehicle, so this was the first time we had launched a Progress vehicle on this variation of the Soyuz rocket since it failed in April of 2015. Now, they had launched other Progress vehicles since then, just not on this variant of the rocket, because they concluded there was a design flaw that led to problems with loads that were out of bounds and a structural failure of the third stage when you combined these two things. Now, when you did other things, other payloads, you didn't encounter this particular failure scenario, so they found, all right, well, we'll drop Progress on a different vehicle, and then we'll work to upgrade this so that we can actually put it on the Soyuz 2.1A rocket. The Progress vehicle had an upgraded command and telemetry system. It had new video links with the space station, which I think means that they moved from analog to digital. I'm pretty sure that's what that means. They had a backup motion control system, not like when they're backing up, but like a secondary or tertiary motion control system. That's for when they do manual control of the vehicle. And they also had an improved Kerr's rendezvous system. That is like your radar system that allows you to detect how close you are to the International Space Station for automated docking. And then a new radio link to the Russian version of TDRS, which is the telemetry data satellite system, telemetry and data relay satellite system.
There you go.
Jeez. Actually, fun fact, unrelated to this, there are two versions of that. There's TDRS and TDRSS. Anyone know what the difference is? The S. Yes, the only difference is the second S. If you say TDRS, you're referring to a single satellite, the telemetry and relay data satellite, and you're usually followed by its number. And TDRSS indicates the entire constellation.
Oh, okay.
So it's the system is like, so fun little fact.
Learned something new today.
Yeah, you will never need that information in real life ever, but now you have it. You're welcome, Internet. So anyhow, it's the Russian version of TDRS. It's not even, I don't know how I got onto TDRS. It's the Russian version of TDRS, where they'll be able to send signals up instead of down. The reason this is important is is Russia only has limited ground stations across the Earth, and so if you send the signal down, you can only control the vehicle when you're over a ground station, so once every 90 minutes or so. If you send the signal up to constellations of satellites orbiting the Earth, you can bounce the signal back around down to your ground station, so you have full control of the vehicle when it's in orbit. So they're testing all of that out. A lot of these new renovations will help make it into the new crew version of their Soyuz capsules and whatnot. So they're kind of testing this on their uncrewed version before they put it into the crewed capsule. Crew capsule, not crude. Crew capsule. So there you go. We had another launch, and I'll let Space Mike go take this one away.
What a transition.
Go, Space Mike.
So probably the biggest event of the year was that the Falcon 9 returned to flight on December 21st and successfully delivered 11 second-generation OG-2 satellites for Orbcomm into orbit. And this mission was awesome. I mean, this was an amazing mission. This was probably one of the biggest moments, at least for my life. For my generation, this is one of our Apollo moments. This was just amazing because, of course, they landed the first stage back down at Cape Canaveral at Landing Zone 1, or LZ-1. You can see footage right here of the launch itself, and at least watching this was pretty tense getting it through this part of the launch getting through to maximum dynamic pressure, because that's where they experienced the failure on the last mission, CRS-7, Commercial Resupply Services. And with this, they were able to get through that phase of flight without any interruptions or any problems, and they were able to ignite the second stage and successfully have the second stage and the payload go further on into orbit. The first stage turned around and performed an engine burn to be able to return back to the launch site, or rather a landing site that was just slightly south of the launch site, and they made a perfect pinpoint landing, and it was awesome. And although some people may have some complaints that SpaceX, the engineers and employees went crazy after this landing, this still was a huge historic moment. Let's watch it again right here.
LZ-1, the Falcon is landed. Landing operators moving to procedure 11.100, section 3 on LZ-1 BNet and recovery net.
Repeat, the Falcon and Planetary.
Very cool. Very cool.
Oh, you can just go, Mike. This goes on for minutes.
So this first stage that landed most likely will not fly again, as the company needs to inspect all of its parts with a fine-tooth comb to determine what parts need to be strengthened or upgraded or replaced, if any, and also determine if any anomalies exist that may require future reworks to the first stages, so that future first stages that they fly can be returned and flown again in the future. But as of right now, this particular first stage most likely will not fly again. Although not to be overlooked on this mission, something that might be equally as important is that the second stage, after it delivered the Orbcomm satellites into orbit, also executed a second engine burn. And this not only certifies the vehicle, at least I think it's certified. I'm not sure if they've gotten clearance yet. But with this new upgraded version of the Merlin 1D vacuum engine, by proving that they can also relight this engine, that clears the way for future geostationary orbit missions. But with this, something that was really cool is they also churned the vehicle around to perform that engine relight so that the second stage would re-enter the atmosphere instead of, you know, being another piece of space junk. So that was very cool, and it was something that was just kind of barely mentioned in the live webcast, but I think that that's pretty important, that the upgraded version of the Merlin 1D vacuum, it can do engine relights, and that everything should be able to proceed with future missions from here on. So this year of 2016 is going to have a lot of potential missions that SpaceX is going to attempt. So congratulations to SpaceX for doing this, and all the best of luck to them in the future of doing more missions. So this was really awesome. But let's go ahead and move it right back along. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Ben, who has some more news of Russian rocket launches.
Absolutely, and we're going to talk more about the SpaceX landing and Blue Origin landing in our main topic in just a few minutes. But before we get to that, as Space Mike mentioned, we did have a Proton launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome on December 24th at 21:31 Coordinated Universal Time.
Yes.
No, yes.
There it goes.
And whoosh.
Whoosh.
That was carrying the Express AMU1 satellite. It's also known as Eutelsat 36C, which replaces the A variation of that satellite. This is designed for a 15-year mission. It's basically direct-to-home television, broadband, radio broadcast, stuff like that. The A variation of that actually was in space. It flew up in 2000. So pretty much 15 years later, they replaced it with the C variation. That's essentially what they're doing. It has 70 transponders at Ka and Ku band frequencies. So I didn't see any C band stuff. The difference being the length of the frequency, what allows you to blow through clouds or stuff like that. The narrower the frequency, the more stuff you can put on it, but the harder it is to get through clouds, and the longer the frequency, the less stuff you can put on it, but it just goes through walls and clouds and everything else. So this is all very narrow stuff. It's more, like we said, if you're in the US, DirecTV, stuff like that. Oh, I activated Alexa. That's awesome. So it took more than 9 hours to deliver that payload into orbit. We also had China launching, I hope I'm pronouncing, Gaofen? Gaofen?
I thought it was Gaofen.
Gaofen? Gaofen? Gaofen?
That's my guess. Gaofen.
Yeah.
Someone on the internet will correct me, and I will probably still get it wrong. And I am sorry, internet, for pronouncing it wrong. But here you go. Here's some launch coverage without audio. So there you go. There's the that is a Long March 3B, as in Bravo, rocket. That launched December 28th at 16:04 Coordinated Universal Time. That was a telescope. Interestingly enough, China actually admitted this one. They finally were like, you know what? Yes, this is for military. There was no. They did say, you know, this is to help for crop yields and everything else. They did that, and they're like, also.
Oh, by the way.
By the way, it is in fact for military. It's designed to. It's a very powerful telescope that'll give us nearly continuous imagery of the Asia-Pacific area from a geostationary orbit. It has a resolution as small as 50 meters, which is about 160, a little over 160 feet. And that would allow the satellite to see something like an oil tanker or an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
Exactly, from space. So that's what that satellite was. That's why they launched it. All right, let's go ahead and hand it on over to Carrie Ann. Talk about Roscosmos.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah. Or Roscosmos.
Oh, man.
The Roscosmos State Corporation. So Roscosmos has been... it's had an interesting history, but the hopeful part here is that as a Roscosmos State Corporation, I want to call it the RSC now, or the RSC.
No acronyms. No acronyms.
That would be really cool. Anyway.
Yeah, no acronyms.
That going forward, that there'll be a lot less corruption and a lot less trouble. So in August 2013, the United Rocket and Space Corporation of inside of Russia was formed by the Russian government to renationalize the nation's space sector, Roscosmos, or part of Roscosmos. On December 28th, 2015, Putin, thank you,
Yes.
signed a decree
Vlad.
Yes, Vladimir. That basically made this so. I mean, so there's been investigations that have been going on for quite a while. The Roscosmos State Corporation is the federal space agency, and the Roscosmos and the United Rocket Space Corporation, because I just wrote you RSC, I apologize, are merging. And the whole idea is, like I said, there's been a lot of corruption. There's been misuse of over 92 billion rubles, or $1.8 billion.
Whoa!
With a B as in boy.
Oops.
There have been failures, delays, like the resupply mission in April. There's just been a lot of issues. And so hopefully this is just going to help a lot of that. So the interesting thing, though, is that there's an updated version of the program, the 2016 to 2025 timeframe, that's actually calling a halt to the Russian crew lunar exploration program. They said manned, but I turned it into crew because that's the way it is. Which I thought was really interesting.
So they're stopping their lunar explorations?
They're not stopping, they're halting, which is different.
Okay.
Pause.
They're pausing.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's
TiVo
like
pause. Bloop, bloop.
It's sort of like what NASA's doing to a certain extent, where NASA's like, hey, we're not going to fly humans for a while, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to do these other things. And NASA's then looking to commercial space to help out with that effort for human spaceflight. And what Russia's doing is saying, hey, we're going to get there, but we want to make sure that we have a different focus for right now. One of the things that they want to look at is a new super heavy vehicle for deep space exploration. which
To compete with the Space Launch System kind of thing?
yeah, although interestingly, they don't look at NASA and the Space Launch System as being their competition.
Who's their competition?
They looked at Arianespace
Okay.
and SpaceX.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting.
and ULA a little bit, but it was like that's who they really look at as
Really?
being, yeah, which I thought was very interesting, really bizarre. As Mike put into my notes, so I appreciate that. The halting is according to Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Rogozin, and the actual head of New Roscosmos, which is
Igor Komarov.
Yeah.
Igor, I don't know.
Yeah, it's IGOR. Igor? Okay, Igor Karamov said that the program will only be pushed back beyond 2025 timeframe. But then there's 5 robotic missions, and they're still going to continue exploring the moon, but like a little bit later on, if that makes so.
That
It's just
does make sense.
it's literally just a halt. It's just a pause. It's like, hey, we just want to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row.
That's actually a bit of a bummer. I was excited for them to go. I'm excited for humanity to start lunar exploration
Yes.
again.
Yes.
And it seems like everyone's like, I mean, we've done that. But I mean, yeah, we did, but let's go back. Let's do something cool again.
I suppose. And part of that effort, though, they want to continue to work and then hopefully complete the 342 square mile Vostochny
Oh, man.
Cosmodrome,
Vostochny.
which is over by the Russia-China border.
Oh man, that launch site is such a
mess.
cluster.
It is a cluster,
Oh my goodness.
right? There's been a lot of issues with that as well.
Yeah.
So
That's where a good chunk of that corruption is, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Although, to help in their effort, they're still charging us $82 million per seat on the Soyuz.
Is that to cover the diamond-encrusted Mercedes?
Yeah,
that they just
basically.
recently saw?
I mean, it's up from $70 million from last year too, which is the thing that
Well,
other thing that kind of
inflation.
Whatever.
When oil's
anyway,
not getting you
I mean,
enough,
I do hope the Roscosmos takes a really good hard look at anybody and everybody
Yes.
and everything that they're doing, and really they have to make some hard choices. Is really what it comes down to, and so they just want to sit back for a minute, reevaluate, and then move forward.
Go ahead, Space Mike.
Something that I find really interesting about this is Dmitry Rogozin was just like, we're canceling lunar exploration plans, like, period. And that's when Igor Komarov had to come out and be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, first of all, he does not have the authority to make that decision. He only oversees the new Russian space agency, and he controls the military side of things. As for the other things, like, I am the head of the new Roscosmos. And what we're actually doing is we are going to be exploring in the 2016 to 2015 timeline. Like you mentioned, they'll have those robotic missions. But then after that, in the beyond 2025 timeline, just so happens to line up with the Chinese manned lunar exploration. So I bet you anything they'll go together. That's my prediction.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
All right, Mike, let's actually hand it back over to you. Let's talk about some RD-180s.
Yeah, so speaking of Russia, well, here in the United States, the 2016 Omnibus Fiscal Spending Bill for 2016 has finally been passed. This was passed on December 18th, 5 months late. The United States House of Representatives and Senate is supposed to come up with the spending bill for the next year in August of every year. And they have consistently not done so for many years, but let's not get into that. Anyway, with this spending bill, something that is really messed up about this is there is one paragraph that was secretly sneaked into the bill that lifts the ban on using RD-180 engines, the Russian-produced engines, on American Atlas V rockets for military launches. There was no restrictions for United Launch Alliance to use the Atlas V for civil or even scientific missions, as long as it didn't have any type of military facet to the missions. But this bill pretty much says that they can now use the RD-180s for any missions, including the military type. And of course, the only person who's really causing a stink about this or saying anything about this is John McCain. And by the way, this whole paragraph that was secretly snuck in at the last minute was authored by Senator Richard Shelby from Alabama, where United Launch Alliance factories are located. So of course, he has a vested interest in this. But I wanted to quote something that John McCain said that at least expresses my feelings towards this exactly. And he made these statements on the Senate floor. He said that the Senate has had time to debate this. We had ample time and opportunity to have this debate. And through months of this debate, no senator, including Richard Shelby, came to the floor and made the case that we need to buy buy more Russian rocket engines. No senator introduced an amendment on the floor to lift the restriction on buying more Russian rocket engines. To the contrary, the Senate and the full Congress voted overwhelmingly and repeatedly to maintain the restriction. This is a policy issue, and it was resolved as it should be on the defense policy bill. And yet, here we stand with a 2,000-page omnibus appropriations bill crafted in secret with no debate, which most of us are seeing for the first time. And buried within it is a policy provision that would effectively allow unlimited purchases and use of Russian rocket engines. I simply cannot allow Senator Shelby, Senator Durbin, who helped Senator Shelby do this, and the Appropriations Committee or any other member of this body to craft a take-it-or-leave-it omnibus spending bill that allows a monopolistic corporation, in this case United Launch Alliance, to do business with Russian oligarchs to buy overpriced rocket engines that fund Russia's belligerence. I will not stand for that, and neither should any of you. So that's a pretty powerful statement, but I mean, Senator Shelby kind of circumvented the law in order to put this paragraph into the spending bill. And it's true, he never once tried to put forward an amendment to get rid of that restriction. He did make several public statements, although not on the Senate floor, that we should lift the ban, but never once did he make statements on the Senate floor or introduce a bill to lift the ban. So this is really messed up. And again, John McCain's the only one saying anything about it. The rest of the Congress was just like, look, dude, it's time for Christmas. We want to go home. We'll come back to this when we meet back again next year. So in the meantime, United Launch Alliance did not waste any time and just less than a week later purchased 20 or possibly more RD-180 engines from Russia. And those are bought and paid for and waiting to be delivered. So whether or not Congress decides to change this or not, United Launch Alliance has already acted and already purchased more engines. So that's the situation that we're in right now, and we're just going to have to wait and see how things move forward. But it is my opinion that we should not continue to purchase RD-180 engines for military launches, even if that means that SpaceX gets the preferred choices for future military launch competitions. Doesn't matter. That should be the way it is until United Launch Alliance is able to replace the engine with either Blue Origin or Aerojet Rocketdyne's engines, so that we're not purchasing these engines anymore. It's bad enough that we have to continue purchasing all these seats on the Soyuz. We need to get commercial crew flying. We need to get Orion flying. We need to get our own stuff working so that we are no longer reliant on Russia. And with this new organization of the Russian state agency, or state corporation, excuse me, then we're just going to really have to wait and see if things go even more south for the Russian space agency, or if they actually do improve and they're able to get rid of all this corruption. But yeah, pretty messed up situation.
But in all fairness, the reason United Launch Alliance uses the RD-180 engines is they were essentially forced to back in the day. And so it's not like they had a choice back then. I mean, they sort of did, but not really. It was kind of shoved down their throat. So then going in and going, well, now you can't use these because they're no longer convenient, is kind of a dick move by us to United Launch Alliance, because we said you have to use them in the first place. So yeah, I mean, you may or may not be right or wrong with regards to whether we should be using them now. But
again, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, but at the same time, maybe we shouldn't have forced them to use them in the first place. So I think there's more to that story than just the simple, oh, we're mad at Russia right now, so you can't have engines. I think it's a much larger story than just. Yeah. There's a lot more going on than just that little piece. It goes back decades. This thing is decades old.
Yeah, in the EELV, or the expendable launch vehicle contracts that they were working on.
What is it? Enhanced expendable.
Enhanced expendable launch vehicle. Yeah, it was stipulated in it that was what you had to use, and it was just hindsight is always 20/20 in history. So there you go.
All right. Speaking of hindsight. That doesn't quite work. Talk to me about Pluto.
Yes, we're going to talk.
Foresight?
Sight? Distant sight? Very far sight? Far sight?
Far sight?
Okay. Well, let's just look at this sight that we have of Pluto. This is some new data that we've gotten of Pluto. The highest resolution imagery from New Horizons in actual color. This is what Pluto looks like.
In living color?
This is Pluto. And of course, New Horizons.
It is beautiful.
Isn't it?
It's real color, not false color, right?
Huh?
Is that false color or is that real color?
I believe there's a little bit of false color to bring out the terrain in it, but it's actually very close to the actual color that you would see.
One could argue what real color actually is and what false color is, because you kind of perceive the world in false color, so. I'm just saying.
Well, you're taking a look at the highest resolution data of Pluto's surface from that flyby on July 14th, 2015. It took New Horizons 9.5 years to get to Pluto across 5 billion kilometers, the most distant object we've explored in our solar system. That initial data set that we got back was compressed, and then the uncompressed data started coming back in September of last year at about 1 kilobyte per second.
Because basically, New Horizons went around, it swung its instruments towards Pluto,
Yes.
it grabbed a bunch of stuff, it did as much as it could, and then it had so much velocity it couldn't stop, right?
No,
so it had to keep going.
Yeah, there wasn't enough fuel on board in order to slow it down to put it in orbit, so it just blew past Pluto.
So then we went past Pluto, and then we went, all right, well, we can't see anything anymore. So we swung the antenna back to Earth, and we said, all right, start downloading all of
Yeah,
this.
downlink. And the problem is that New Horizons only runs on about 190 watts of power. So that's what you get. That's what you get to run the spacecraft on. So because of that and the extremely vast distance, 5 billion kilometers, there's only so much you can actually get back. I think the signal strength back was like 10 to the negative 23rd watts of power, if you can even...
I can't fathom that.
Yeah, I can't either.
There's nothing I can... How many football fields is that?
For a comparison, I've been told that is much like trying to pick up a cell phone signal from the moon, roughly.
Wow.
So, and that's what we're working with, and that's why we're doing 1 kilobyte per second.
In all fairness, we do have very large antennas pointed right at it.
Yeah,
try to-
we're using the biggest antenna that the Deep Space Network used, which are 70 meters across. So,
Whoa.
it's just gigantic.
Yeah.
So, very, very big. That terrain, the scientists call it chaos terrain because you've got young, smooth terrain right next to jagged, rough, older terrain. And we're talking like terrain 100 million years old right next to terrain that may be 4 billion years old. And it's one of those things that scientifically, it's not making a lot of sense when we look at Pluto. So we're probably going to have to go back to the planetary geology books that we thought we had nailed down and, rewrite whole chapters of them as we go through it.
So Pluto may be a planet after all?
No, Pluto's not a planet, and I will still stick with
Well,
them.
I'd like to welcome Pluto back into the planetary status. I'll be the first to welcome. All right, Carrie Ann, talking about welcoming Pluto, New Horizons, and things like that.
You're really good at this game today. Wow. So when
It's good to know that in 2016 the show is basically the same.
Did he start drinking early?
You don't know what's in the cup. You have no idea what's in
nobody
that
has
cup.
a
Apologize, everyone. Last show I put in segue notes, and I didn't do that this time. I should have. I'll do that next time.
All right, so
in 1992, the USPS, or the United States Postal Service, there you go, had a 29-cent stamp of Pluto, and it was a really grainy picture because that's pretty much all we had at the time, that said Pluto not yet explored.
Oh, man.
Right?
Yeah, that got scientists so mad.
Really frustrating.
well, it was true.
It did.
And then, I mean, that wasn't the only thing that made the New Horizons project come to be, but that was sort of the rally cry, if you will. And when
A stamp.
A stamp. And when New Horizons...
Scientists were like, oh,
when
this
New
stamp.
Horizons launched,
Yep.
it had one of those stamps on it.
Ha ha ha! That's awesome.
Revenge!
Then when we had the flyby,
Yep.
they had a big, huge poster of the stamp with the words not and yet crossed out. So it was just Pluto explored.
Boom. That's great.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing. And one of the things that the United States Postal Service does is they have commemorative stamps. And what they're doing for 2016 are these super awesome Pluto and New Horizons stamps with, of course, an updated image of Pluto because now we have those, which I thought was really, really cool.
There it is.
Neat, huh? So it's obviously you can see Pluto and then an artist rendition of what New Horizons would have looked like, I suppose, in space. And the picture's taken from I can't talk either, I apologize, from the flyby. The other stamps that they're doing in 2016, there are United States Forever stamps that are the 8 planets, which I thought was really cool.
Yep.
Aren't
Nice.
those beautiful? So all of Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune.
All 9 planets in there.
All 8 planets,
8.
that's what
All
I said.
9 planets.
Eight.
Yeah.
All 8
Why
planets.
we
Yeah,
just
all 8 of them.
re-entered
So.
Pluto into the planetary status
Yep.
on this show.
Oh,
Anyway.
well, on the show.
And then what I thought was really cool, there's some global forever stamps, which are about $1.20, that feature the moon. And those are really pretty too.
They look like coins.
Great big full
Wouldn't it be
moon.
cool to have like moon coins?
Yeah, it would.
I'll give you 3 moons for that.
There you
Yeah,
go.
kind of. I think it'd look awesome.
And they are round, which I thought was also an interesting.
I want those.
A nice little touch.
Can you use them? Are they forever stamps? I missed.
They are forever stamps, but they're global forever stamps, so they're worth $1.20.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's really
So-
cool. We definitely need to buy those.
Yeah, totally. And then
I like how it also says the moon.
in case you didn't know.
Thanks, guys.
In case you're unaware.
Yeah. And then celebrating the 50th anniversary, the United States Postal Service is also featuring Star Trek with 4 different designs. And Ben thought that they were ugly, so you don't get to see them.
Nope.
They're awesome. Don't
They
believe
are
them.
awesome.
No, the moon. Go back to the moon ones. Da-da. Yeah, there you go. Those are awesome.
Yeah.
Those
They
are
are
awesome.
awesome.
They're way more awesome than the Star Trek
They're
ones.
awesome.
Don't get me wrong.
And the Star Trek ones are pretty.
Yeah, whatever.
They are.
The moon is awesome.
Not that anybody can see, because you didn't put that one in there.
Speaking of pretty pictures, Jared.
Whatever.
Yeah, let's take a look at this awesome picture that we got back from Curiosity just a few weeks ago. This is the Mangold Dunes, which is where Curiosity is currently at on Mars as it approaches Mount Sharp in Gale Crater. This is actually the first time we're going to study sand dune structures off of the Earth. So pretty exciting stuff. Curiosity is going to be there for a long-term study to see if there are any structural changes. It's also going to sample the dunes using its ChemCam system that it has on board, where it takes that laser and zaps material, and it actually takes in, or it reads the gases coming off of it and figures out exactly what it's made out of. Also going to go over there and scoop up some material and take it into its onboard chemistry lab. Those dunes you're looking at right there are about 10 meters tall, and they appear to be wind-driven, just like the dunes here on Earth. Now, Curiosity is not going to be able to drive up those dunes because of that loose structure of the sand particulate that's making that up. That would cause the wheels to lose traction and sink, and that would trap Curiosity, and that is precisely what you don't want to do with that kind of scientific equipment on the surface of another planet. So Curiosity still chugging along, taking a little stopover before it starts to climb up Mount Sharp, but very cool that we're looking at a structure we find here on Earth and comparing it to how that structure may act on another planet.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about how suddenly, at the very end of 2015, we could land rockets now. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled on some expectation, this girl's a fascination. Nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving, 'cause her heat keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
There we go. There I am. I was gonna say, even Space Mike was bopping his head to the music. We're watching him on screen. He's like. I'd like to thank all of the patrons of tomorrow who have helped to make this specific. These are the people who contributed $5 or more to this specific episode. We are a crowdfunded show. Every single dollar helps. In fact, I am contemplating, because there's so little money that comes in through ad revenue, of just removing all advertising so you can watch this show ad-free.
Potentially.
Let me know what you think of that idea. There is a little bit of revenue that comes in, and like I say every week, every dollar helps, so let me know what you think of that idea. Anyhow, if you'd like to find out more information on how you can help crowdfund the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. We have changed our Space Pod campaign. It is monthly now instead of per episode. It makes it way easier for you to figure out how much your Space Pod contributions are. And it also is directly tied to the number of Space Pods we're going to release per month. So if you're interested in getting more Space Pods, we made our first goal, which means you get 2 Space Pods per month. We're only like, what, $120-something away?
I think we're $119 as of this morning away
Okay,
from our second
so
one.
$120 away from our next goal, which will get you 1 Space Pod per week, or 4 per month. So I'd love for us to get our Space Pod campaigns over that threshold. I think that'd be really cool. Basically, each Space Pod correspondent gets 1 week. You can find out more information on that over at patreon.com/spacepod. All right. So going into 2015, no one had ever landed a rocket, and we're like, this is the year SpaceX is going to do it, right? I mean, that was kind of the thought process going into 2015.
Yeah.
And then, we get halfway through the year, still haven't really done it, kind of getting close. Then we have the mishap, and we're like, oh,
Great.
you know what? It's not going to happen this year.
Probably not.
We're not going to land a rocket this year. And we get into September, then October, most of November goes by, and then out of the blue Origin, out of the blue, at the end of November, Blue Origin launches, and actually I think we have footage of that. They launch their rocket, right? Here we go. They launch their rocket, goes up, and they land it. And suddenly, we can land rockets. At the end of 2015, we can land rockets. Now, the thing with the Blue Origin rocket is that it did cross the boundary of space, the 100-kilometer line.
Common line. Yeah.
Yep, it crossed it by 0.5 kilometers.
Okay.
Is that right?
Okay.
Yeah, 0.5 kilometers.
500 meters.
So, great, awesome.
Yes.
So they did it, it went to space, but that is suborbital space. That does not mean it is not an awesome accomplishment. It is an incredible accomplishment, and what it does is it opens the door. Here we go, look at this.
Ready?
This is just awesome, right? And we're flying back down. We had to strip out the audio because they used music for this. Yeah, we're relighting they use liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen on this. So, all right, you can kind of see the engine steering. Yeah, it's kind of cool to see the engine steering. And we kind of come down, and now we are the first rocket that has made it to the boundary of space and have recovered. Well, it depends on it depends on how you define rocket, right? Because the space shuttle had engines on it. So was the space shuttle a rocket?
It was a rocket plane.
We did recover the SRBs and reuse them.
Yeah.
Were the solid rocket motors rockets? I mean, so it depends on how you define rocket. But nevertheless, this is an amazing feat. This opens up the door to reusability for suborbital spaceflight. You could send humans. In fact, their plan is send humans on top of this, send them into space, recover both the human capsule and the first stage, and greatly reduce the cost of. Imagine how many humans are going to be able to send up and experience the overview effect.
It's so exciting.
It is super exciting to see where we're going to be. And this is the year, 2016. This could be the year where this starts to happen. With not just them. We've got Virgin Galactic. We've got possibly X-Core. They're in a little bit of...
Maybe.
Well,
we'll see.
Their company's kind of floundering right now. So
We'll see. We're hopeful that they'll get it together.
We are hopeful, absolutely. Yes. Now we've got Blue Origin. That's all really cool.
Yes.
Then SpaceX returns to flight. And we've actually got an infographic. I almost don't want to show it because I don't like comparing the Blue Origin flight to the SpaceX flight because they are completely different things, and both are absolutely amazing. I'm going to show it anyhow. So here's the graphic. This is the corrected graphic. There was an incorrect version of this graphic that floated around the internet for quite some time that showed the SpaceX trajectory way to the right, and that was not correct. They actually did correct it, and this is the corrected version. And you can see the difference between what the SpaceX vehicle did and what the Blue Origin vehicle did. Regardless, both are incredible, and the reason that it doesn't matter that they're different is that Blue Origin has a different business case than SpaceX. Blue Origin is sending humans up. Blue Origin is doing that overview effect. They're doing that suborbital spaceflight. They're getting humans excited about space in that way. And then Falcon 9, SpaceX, they're sending cargo to the International Space Station. Now, they may send humans up eventually, and this will help them reduce that cost. I mean, they'll be sending humans up to the International Space Station, but it's not for you and me.
No.
It's not for mere mortals.
No.
It's not for people
Dear
to just
peons.
go up. Yeah, mere peons like us.
Yes.
To go up and just take a joyride in space for a few minutes and come back down and experience the overview effect. They're trying to go to Mars. So now you understand the difference as to why it was a big deal that SpaceX did it, even though they were second, I'm air quoting second, why it was a big deal for them to do it. But now, suddenly, at the end of December, SpaceX lands their stage. And interestingly enough, Elon tweeted out saying, I thought we lost the rocket. Because when you come back, you have sonic booms.
Yeah.
The sound, in fact, not that one. Go back to the other clip data. The sound travels slower than light.
Yes.
And so you watch the rocket land, and basically it looks like this. Here's the landing coverage from a little ways away. There you can see Falcon landing, and now listen carefully. Now, the crowd knows what's going on, which was, those were the sonic booms of Falcon re-entering delayed. And if you listen, you can hear, well, I cut the clip too early. You can start to hear the engines, right? So you hear the boom-boom, or the boom-boom of the...
a double boom as well, just like shuttle.
So you hear the boom-boom, and then it looked like it landed and then it exploded. In reality, they actually landed successfully. The crowd kind of knew what was going on. And then Elon tweeted this out. He basically said, Falcon 9's back in the hangar, no damage really found. And then he also, that Instagram, goes to this picture right there. Whew.
Oh, man, look at that.
We did not coordinate that in advance with Dutta, so thank you, Dutta, for making that happen. That is a Falcon 9 stage that went to space and has come back.
Man.
And so now suddenly, at the end of 2015, basically the last month of the year, I know that Blue Origin did it in November, but basically the last month of the year, we went from not having these rocket stages be reusable
No capability.
to near capability.
Yes.
What we haven't done yet is reflown them.
Yes, that's the big question too.
Why?
That because you can land it back and you can go through the process of getting it ready to fly again and go through all of that and then fly it again. But is that going to be just as expensive as making a new rocket, like building a first stage, like shuttle? Like your point that you always make is that the shuttle wasn't really reusable, it was refurbishable. Right. And in being refurbishable, it was also unbelievably expensive because when shuttle landed, you literally took the entire vehicle apart.
Well, no. You didn't literally take the entire vehicle
You looked over everything that you could during that.
I mean, let's be fair.
Yeah, okay.
Let's be fair.
We'll be fair here. In that you came very close to that, but in that the expense skyrocketed. It actually, it did not end up doing what it was intended to do. And the key to reusable spaceflight is that you have to have that rapid turnaround, that ability to really quickly get back on it. And that is the big question. Not necessarily can you bring it back to the landing site, because obviously we've proven that that is possible, and people were very confident that that would happen eventually at some point.
Well, no, I think that's a new thing. You go back Space Mike, if we went back 5 years, did you think someone would be able to recover? Did you think that SpaceX and someone else would be able to recover a stage?
I did not think that SpaceX and someone else would be able to do that. At the time, we didn't know that Blue Origin was planning on reusing their rockets. I knew they had some sort of idea, and I thought that honestly they were going to have something closer to their old type of vehicle where rockets were integrated into the capsule itself. That was their initial test vehicle. So I, didn't think that Blue Origin would possibly be a part of this at all. 5 years ago, I did think that SpaceX might be able to do it someday because they were already talking about reusability. But I definitely didn't think that it would happen this soon. And I didn't even think that it would happen this year. I mean, I thought they weren't even going to attempt the landing on this launch. So, I mean, this came as a huge surprise, I'm sure, to everybody. And I think, though, that 5 years ago, at least reusability might not have been something people thought were possible, but at least was probable. And definitely not necessarily 2 or even 3 people or entities that would be able to do that. So that's my impression anyway.
What kind of impact will this have on the market? Not just SpaceX, but Blue Origin. Are others going to, I mean, we've got United Launch Alliance talking about reusability for their engines now.
Yeah.
Engine pod.
I was about to say, even before the fact that it actually occurred physically, the companies were already sort of, I don't want to necessarily say scrambling, but they're going as fast as their engineering departments will allow them to in order to actually make reusability a possibility. So like we saw with the announcement this year that ULAs will be reusing its first stage engines, and that Ariane will be having the flyback booster with it. So.
Yeah, I think that just like Jared brought up, it all goes to cost. If with SpaceX, if they can kind of fulfill that promise that essentially they would come down to the cost of fuel, then that will have a huge impact on the market. Prices will go way down. All the other companies in competition to SpaceX is going to have to compete and lower their prices. Thankfully, United Launch Alliance is already doing that by trimming a lot of the fat and getting rid of a lot of the extra money that they were getting in from the Air Force and from Congress and from all these other sources and kind of triply paying for stuff. Thankfully, they're getting rid of that. So the prices are going down for Atlas and Delta launches, but there still needs to do a lot more to catch up with what SpaceX's prices already are. And let's just say that they still have a lot of costs to refurbish the first stages. Let's say that the cost of a SpaceX launch is only cut in half. That still would be huge. That would be amazing. And so many more people would be able to launch in space, especially if they continue to do more rideshare programs. So again, it all comes down to how much will it actually cost to refurbish and refly these rockets.
Is 2016 the year that happens? Is 2016 the year that Blue Origin reflies that first stage and that SpaceX reflies a first stage? Or do we have to wait a little bit longer?
I honestly think that Blue Origin is going to be able to do it first in terms of reflight. Since they're suborbital, that's a little bit easier in terms of energy and refurbishment and other things that you may need to do. I don't think rapid reusability, as in like a 24-hour turnaround, which is sort of the holy grail of reusability, is going to be possible this year in 2016. But then again, you know, none of us thought last year that we would actually have a rocket landing.
What about Dave
amazing
Maston?
things.
Dave Maston's working with DARPA on that rapid reuse.
XS1,
yes.
the reusable shuttle.
Yeah.
Kind of like a reusable X-37 type of thing.
Is this year, are we too early this year? Do you think that's more like a 2017, 2018 thing? Or do you think you just out of the blue, Maston's going to be like, boom, there you go.
That would be pretty sweet if we were able to do that. But I believe that project was started, you know, very recently. I don't know if the development in that has gone far enough with that. So
we'll see. There was a question in the chat room, and it was to both of us, which is, Carrie and Ben, were you at SpaceX at the time of the landing, and what was your first reaction? So we generally try, Carrie and I both work at SpaceX at our day jobs, and it's important to know that our views and opinions on that have no bearing on what SpaceX's views and opinions are. And we actually brought Space Mike in to cover SpaceX news because it's weird for us to cover that, right? We shouldn't be covering that. That's not something that we talk about generally. So we have to be very, very, very careful when we talk about SpaceX. I think it's okay to talk about our reaction because that isn't SpaceX policy. Right? So I'll say I was in the video control room at the time. That's why I missed that last episode as I was preparing for that. And the energy was amazing. You can pick up, I mean, when you watch the intro video, the cold open to the Today Show, and then you watch again the landing footage when we showed off actually, Dutta, just go ahead and roll the landing coverage again, and just listen to this. Just listen to the sound of the crowd.
That is that first stage coming back down to land and kicking up. History in the making, guys.
That is what it was like, even in the video control room. The people on console in video control were they were doing that. They were doing that behind me. They were jumping. There was screaming. I actually had to get out of my chair, lean forward because I'm direct. Okay, you can kill that data. Because I'm directing I'm helping direct the show, right? So I'm actually leaning out of my chair, pointing at the shots so the technical director can see what we need to go to because it was so loud. It was so loud and so incredible. There was so much excitement that you just could not hear instruction. The only thing you could do is just point and shout and be like, go to that one!
Yeah,
and it was.
I love that shot of it on the launch pad, and then it zooms in, and then it looks down at the rocket. It's almost like the here it is, it's on the ground.
Yeah.
What more do you want? You know, kind of deal with it.
So it was. I was in the moment of making sure that we were still live and still doing what we needed to do. So it hadn't actually sunk in until like a little bit later for me. But you couldn't avoid. I mean. I can't describe the energy. How about for you?
Yeah, it was deafening.
Yeah.
It was deafening. My reaction, I guess, it was so loud. I don't know. I don't really remember. It just, everything was so loud. Everyone was screaming and shouting and jumping and hugging and people said later on that there were a lot of tears. A lot of men shed a lot of tears. It was kind of insane. But then, as a number of people have pointed out in the chat room, and kind of what Ben was alluding to, you know, that the show, that the webcast needs to go on because we hadn't reached our primary mission quite yet.
Yes.
So there was plenty. There was still plenty to do. And while we were excited about things that we had accomplished, you know, there were still a lot of things that needed to be done. And so it was a weird sort of like, it was very, I don't know exactly what the word is, but, you know, you were happy for that, and that was neat, but you were still sort of anxious, I guess, to make sure that the primary mission went off and correctly, successfully. So it was interesting, but it was a very odd mixture of like anxiety and happiness and excited, but still like trying to temper yourself a little bit because you knew that there was so much more that still needed to be done. Yeah, but it was deafening. It was deafening. It was absolutely deafening in there. It was amazing. But
where were you? Destructor 1701 asks, where were you at the moment of landing?
Yeah, I was down. You saw the mission control shot of, you could see mission control, and then behind it were a whole sea of people. I was somewhere in the middle of that sea of people. My particular workstation is somewhere between mission control and the midst of that sea of people, and I was at my workstation because it was just easier and faster to be there than anywhere else. And it's just a good spot. You can kind of see everything in mission control, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, no, it was kind of, it was crazy. There was a lot of hugs going around, but then you still kind of look back at everything and said, okay, and? And so, and much like Mike was saying, you know, the sort of slightly overlooked second stage reignition, that was a big deal. And so there, you know, you could only be so excited for so long. There were so many different things. That timeline across the bottom was really quite brilliant to be able to say, okay, what's next?
Yes, it
okay.
was. That was awesome.
Okay, that was good too. Okay, what's next?
Yeah, I don't
okay,
know.
that was good too.
I don't know who did those webcast graphics, but they are brilliant individuals.
It was
Probably
really-
very handsome as
Yeah,
well.
I don't know who
I would have
did
to
it.
say that they're an incredibly intelligent and handsome and brilliant individual. No idea who that person is.
My
though.
understanding is that that was an outside contract, so I could be wrong, but I was pretty sure it was
Oh,
nobody,
my nose.
nobody
No.
inside of SpaceX
Yeah.
really did that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, to answer your question, that was my sort of general reaction.
There will be motions in the break that you won't get to see.
But there was a lot of that though. I think that our two reactions are similar but different. Just based
We
on
were in different areas,
on where
actually.
we were.
I was, the video controlling isn't by mission control. It's in a completely different area of the building. It's actually separated by a giant concrete wall, and it's on a different floor. And to give you an idea as to how exciting it was, the sound from outside of mission control made it up an entire story through the concrete firewalls and into mission control. It was still loud from there.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you listen, you can hear the talent screaming into their microphones.
Their microphones are about as far away from them as ours are.
I actually
maybe a
got
little bit
special
further.
microphones that were very narrow because we knew it was going to
And
be
you
loud,
could still
and they
tell that
still
they were
had to scream.
screaming.
That's how loud and exciting it was.
Yep.
And you know what? We were present for that one, but when you watch the Blue Origin video, they released their reactions as well. It's a smaller group because it's a smaller company,
Sure.
but it's the same.
the same.
It's that same emotion, that same like, we are changing the future of humanity.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe this is working. This is awesome. And I love those moments.
Those
I
are the best.
absolutely love those moments.
I can't wait to start living those moments someday.
More and more
That would be
again.
amazing.
I think it's
So-
going to happen more and more. And like
Yeah.
we're getting into this almost Silicon Valley cycle of space at this point.
Yeah.
And we're
very
going to see a lot
exciting.
of really cool things happening.
So much excitement.
All right. what were you-
In the chat room, Dr. Spaceman asked, was the second stage reignition a big deal because of the desensitized propellants? I think you mean the denser propellants. Otherwise, SpaceX has done this before with various GEO missions, correct? Yes, they have, but the big deal was that this is an upgraded engine, so essentially it's a new engine.
More thrust.
Even though it's based on their old version, this is an upgraded and different engine. So that's why they had to kind of redo this again to make sure that they wouldn't have any problems with this upgraded version. That's why that's a big deal.
Space Mike, where were you during the launch and landing?
I was here at home, just a few feet away from where I'm currently sitting, and I definitely woke up the neighborhood. I went nuts. I was cursing in a good way and just yelling and screaming and jumping up and down and just, holy crap, that was awesome. So awesome. I mean, I didn't record my reaction when I was actually watching it, but I was on Twitter during the whole time, and Lisa, almost immediately after the webcast was over, Lisa was just like, dude, you should film your reaction video to this right now while you still have the energy. And I was just like, yes, I should, and closed it all down and recorded a very I still have to apologize because I was so excited and could barely talk, and and there's actually a lot of edits that I had to do because I just couldn't vocalize what I was trying to say. But I like that my reaction video got a lot of views. I was really surprised, and a lot of new people were asking a lot of general questions. So I had fun kind of going in there and answering some questions to these people that I've never seen commenting before. So I'm still excited about it. I mean, I'm still getting flustered talking about it. So this is amazing.
Where were you?
I was actually at the holiday party up at where I work at Griffith
Did you guys watch
Observatory.
it live at
We watched it live. We basically.
That's a great place to watch
I went to
that
my
live.
boss. I went to my boss and I said, "Can we put the stream on tonight to watch it down in one of our exhibit areas?" And he's like, "You're like the 8th or 9th person to come up and ask me about watching it live." So we got to watch it live, and it was really cool. But I didn't really get to like sit down and actually watch it until the next day. And I made sure to film myself while doing it, because that was when I really got to like actually sit down and I got to take in everything and really understand how everything was working with it. And so rewatching it at home is what ended up making it to that little small clip at the end of my space pod. And man, I'm still like, my cheeks hurt still because every time the smile's so big every time I see it. Even now, like today on the show, just watching it, because this is.
You did. You went giddy in your chair when you watched it.
I did, because it was just, as an engineer, that is the holy grail. It's like somebody pulling out the most amazing thing that you can possibly do and putting it in front of you and showing it to you, and it's here, and now we get to see what can we do beyond that as well. I was excited for what was happening, and I was also super excited for the fact that now this is really going to motivate people to the future as well. And also very excited too, because this really got a lot of attention, and this has the potential to really bring a lot of people into the spaceflight industry as well. And that was a really cool thing.
Donna, where were you?
Yeah, I'm just
Microphones,
working
buttons.
it.
Yeah, he was not ready for that. Almost. One more button. There you go.
Hey! I was actually at home sick.
Woohoo!
Woo!
So I didn't get to watch it until after the fact, and I was like, I was basically slept all day, and thank you to my lovely wife Kitty for allowing me to do that and taking care of baby Detta and all that. But then I woke up at like 7, 8 o'clock or so, and was watching it on my phone, and I was just, I had a very, very high hopes that they would do it, and I was just so, yes, excited that they actually made it work, and I'm very, very happy for SpaceX and everybody involved, all the engineers, all the team, the pixel pushers, everybody that made that happen and gave us that show. It was really, really a treat to see.
And I want to know in our comments, where were you, the community of tomorrow, when you saw these two events happen? So it's a little bit easier to do the SpaceX one because they aired it live.
Yes.
Right? So it was a live event that everyone could participate in a way, right? Because there was, I know on Reddit at least, there was an IRC chat room with, that is an amazing read on the Reddit/r/SpaceX. That is an amazing read. The Blue Origin stuff was neat and it was cool, but we didn't get to participate in it because they only released it after the fact.
Yes.
So hopefully they start releasing like live webcasts, kind of like what SpaceX does. I'd love to see that, and we can all kind of participate and cheer them along.
Yeah.
Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. But where were you for these events, right? So where were you for the SpaceX landing, and what did you do, and how did you react? And then same thing with Blue Origin. When you saw them land, how did you react? What did you think to that? And what do you think is going to become of this in 2016? Right? Did this change anything, or are we only a little bit of the way there? Have we not? Because we haven't reflown any of these things. Does it matter to you yet? Do you think this is the year that this all starts to happen? Is this the tipping point for space, or are we still a few years away? Right? So leave your comments on YouTube, on Reddit, wherever you want, on the Tomorrow website, whatever you want. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, comments from our last show in 2015. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
We've always looked to the stars. They guide us, give us comfort, help us find our way. We see ourselves out there. When we look up, It inspires us. And we long for something we don't yet know. We yearn to go there. So, we venture forth.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not.
Many think we stopped exploring. But we know our journey didn't end. We've only just begun.
Orion is functioning perfectly at this point.
Come with us and explore tomorrow.
Now, we haven't had time, but we definitely need to redo our intro video with additional tasks, things that happened since like 2010, I think it's the last one in there. And that promo video that you just saw, I think we need to throw some of the Blue Origin stuff in there and some of the SpaceX stuff in there. Before we get into comments from our last show, I did want to give a huge shout out to all of the patrons of tomorrow who helped to make this specific segment of this episode happen. These are the people who have contributed $2.50 or more. They're also going to get immediate access to After Dark as soon as we post it online. Oh, but wait, there's more. We've also got our patron subscribers. That's right, as little as 1 penny gets your name in the show. If you contribute 1 penny, we'll put your name in the show. You get other perks as well. Just head on over to patreon.com/TMRO to find out more information on reward levels, goals, and a bunch of different things. In addition to the space pods being like $120 away from their next goal, I think the live shows are also about $120 or so away from their next next goal also. So that's very cool.
Yeah.
So both of them are equally something. All right. What was it? It was comment
Lord.
Comment
Comment
Lord.
Lord!
Comment Lord.
Comment Lord. First
First
comment.
First comment. It's from Jamie Godwin. Says, how many space pods a week for $0? Just kidding. I love your show.
Zero space pods for $0. Actually, so
Easy math.
how long does a space pod take to make?
Oh, a space pod? Usually takes me about 10 to 15 hours worth of work.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine that if I make 4 space pods in a month, just myself, I'm literally doing like a full 8-hour, 5 days a week worth amount of work in order to do space pods for the month.
And that is why we pay our correspondents, because it is not a small amount of work to produce these videos.
Yeah.
And those funds in 2015 came out of the Tomorrow Live budget. So what we're doing for 2016 is, in order to get that live budget back, because we just obliterated it for 2015, and then we obliterated it some more, and then some more. In order to get that back, we have moved space pods over to those the monthly campaign, and then it's going to be based on the rewards. The goals are basically when we reach this amount of money, we will then be able to release this number of shows, because then it's fair to everyone, and we'll be able to do really cool things. So again, head on over to patreon.com/spacepod if you like the space pods, and you'll get more of your space pods coming back. So all right, next comment. Oh, actually, wait, before we do that, how much time does it take for you, Space Mike? I'm pointing to your face.
About the same amount of time, plus or minus, depending on the subject. If it's something that I'm very familiar with, like for example, like a SpaceX item news, then I can usually make a video, from start to finish of writing notes to, completing the upload. It, can be like, only like maybe 4 or 5 hours. But something that does require me to do a lot of research, I might start like several days before I even start filming so that I can have everything ready to go. So it really depends, but on average, about 10 to 12 hours.
So that's why we did that. That's why we're doing what we're doing for 2016. And hopefully we make that next goal very, very soon, because I'd love to get you guys doing even more stuff. Ultimately, I'd love to. There's a goal in there that I know everyone's like, oh, stop talking about Patreon. But there's a goal in there that allows us to, it's an obscenely high number, but allows us to have 1 tomorrow's show 7 days a week, essentially.
Yeah.
So when you take into account the live show, there would be 6 space pods per week plus the live show. That would, of course, require additional correspondence because I'm not going to make you guys do that much work. But I think that would be really cool, where every day of the week you get a new piece of information from tomorrow on our channel. I would love to reach that goal someday.
That'd
I
be
think that'd
awesome.
be freaking awesome. Yeah, so all right. Comment. I almost called you Space Lord. Space Lord?
Please don't do that. Also from YouTube. This one comes from Nightlight ABCD. Great show as always. The problem I have with sci-fi is that they hardly ever have anything to do with reality or science. How often do you see people walking around on Mars as though they are on Earth, or spaceships that they are not rotating with people walking around as though they have the gravity of Earth?
Well, some of them make some assumptions. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but no, but yeah. Well, you have to. What is it? Suspended disbelief just for a bit. It's TV,
Yes.
right? You need
Well,
to
and every once in a while you do get the whole like, make sure you have your gravity boots on, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
you know, one line here or there that kind of just sort of explains it very quickly, throw away, and then you
Because
can just move on with your life.
I mean, let's be fair. They're shooting it in 1G.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's really hard and expensive to simulate zero or microgravity.
Yeah, it's not Apollo 13. You're not going to build the sets into a vomit comet and then fly
Right.
parabolas all day with your actors.
Right.
So,
It's extremely expensive and hard to do that. So
Yeah.
I get that. As a space nerd, I understand and appreciate that. At the same time, suspended disbelief, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it,
come
it
on.
is television. They're making it all up anyhow.
yeah. Also,
Something
sometimes.
that
Oh, go ahead,
Go
Space
ahead.
Mike.
Something I would really like to see, though, is there actually is one movie that was filmed in space, although no one's ever seen it, because Richard Garriott,
Right.
when he went up there on his tourist flight, filmed like a little short movie with the other astronauts, and pretty much the plot of the movie is that aliens invade the International Space Station. But he won't share that with anyone other than friends and family, so...
Well, we need
Yeah.
to make him a friend and family of the show, and he
Yes.
can air it live here.
The world premiere.
That would be awesome.
I'm sure he will do that. All right, and our final comment.
This one comes from Stephen Thompson, also off of YouTube. It's possible the biggest space influencer will be a young girl who wanted to be a ballerina until she was awestruck watching a rocket take off and then land. Instead of trying to harness this interest and direct it into predetermined areas, it might be better just to work on building a strong foundation. Launching space tourists will likely bring in more people than any outreach effort, and all the new blood will take us into unexpected directions.
I completely agree, and
Yes.
that's why I think what Blue Origin is doing is equally as important to what SpaceX is doing. SpaceX's long-term mission is important. Getting humans on Mars is a big deal, but it is a long-term mission. It is not happening tomorrow. Blue Origin is getting eerily close to being able to put humans up and experience the overview effect. The thing where you're in zero gravity and you're looking at the curvature of the Earth, this tiny, frail planet, and you comprehend it in a new way for the first, like your brain just goes and almost breaks. That, I think, being able to experience space will do more for getting people excited about space and more for the global space industry than anything that has come prior to that, in my humble but accurate opinion. So that's why that's why I'm excited for what Blue Origin is doing. That's why I'm excited for what Virgin Galactic is doing. That's why I'm excited for what X-Core is doing. That's also why I'm excited for what Dave Maston is doing. All of these companies are adding to this incredible foundation of space awesomeness and space epicness that will get more people interested. And the more people interested, the more money that can flow into it. And the more money that flows into it, the more we can do. The more awesome things we're going to be able to do. There you go.
Unbelievable.
Yep. All right. Everyone agreed.
Yeah,
All
pretty
right.
much.
That is our show for this week. After Dark is up next. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching. We have got one more show in the month of January, and then we are off for 2 weeks as we take our annual pilgrimage down to Walt Disney World with the Duddas. It's going to be an awesome trip. So one more show next week in January, then 2 weeks off. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.